and welcome to the Autism Now What podcast. Parenting a child with autism takes endurance, courage, resilience, and will test your faith. Today, we're speaking to Jonti Mayer, personal life coach and author of a book called Conscious Manifestation. Jonti is going to share with us the 10 practices that he recommends to help parents raising a child with autism or special needs navigate their way through the stormy seas of special needs parenting. We are very excited to be speaking to Jonti today. He has over 20 years of experience as a personal life coach. He has coached business leaders, parents, individuals, management teams over the last 20 years, both locally and abroad. And he is one of South Africa's most leading personal coaches. It's an honor to have you here today, Jonti.
Thank you, Ilana, for having me. I'm truly honored to be here. You are one of the most inspirational people that I know. So it really is an honor for me to be joining you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonti. So I'm gonna jump into my first question.
Sure, go for it.
Of children with autism are very worried. They're constantly living in fear about their child's future. Will he speak? Will he go to school? Will he lead a normal life? I know that I used to live in constant fear when my son David was diagnosed with autism. How do we conquer fear?
Sure. Okay, so look, fear is something that every single human being experiences. So the first thing to know is to put fear into a context, right? Everybody experiences fear in the areas of their lives that are most dear to them. So the first thing is not to be too worried about the fear itself. But obviously, fear does limit our experience of love, and it limits our experience of joy. And ultimately, it limits our ability to give love to our children. So there are a few ways in which, a parent of an autistic child can manage their fear better. So one of the tools that I give my clients is to try and imagine worst case scenario. Now, I know that in this situation, it's obviously it may not be a very happy picture, right? And I truly get that. But from my perspective, what is required for us to be the very best that we can be and for us to live our very, very best life is to confront that which we are scared of, right? At the end of the day, we become more powerful through positive confrontation, okay? And at the end of the day, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do you have this type of child? Nobody knows. Life is living you. You are not living life. And ultimately, you're not in control. So in order to get a little bit more control over our lives, over our situation, we have to look the fear monster in the face. We have to confront it, and we have to be able to deal with whatever worst case scenarios we are ultimately given. And here's the interesting thing, is that when we are able to come to terms with the worst case scenario, very often as a result of that, we will release the fear itself, and we will be able to engage with our situation in a far more powerful and in a far more effective, productive, and creative way.
Jonti, that was profound. I know that fear used to limit me in the early days when David was diagnosed with autism, and confronting your fear is really excellent advice. I love how you explain the idea of actually confronting that worst case scenario. That was amazing. Now, parents of children with autism often feel broken. They get told to be courageous. How do they actually translate this into reality? How can you be courageous when your heart is breaking?
Right. Also, great question, and I mean, I can feel just the pain of the situation for parents in these situations. Um, so here's my message. Really, so there are two aspects to this. Okay. First aspect: give yourself time and permission to be fully heartbroken, right? The truth of the matter is that on some level, it is heartbreaking. That's the reality of it. There is no pretending that it's not. Every parent, every human being who has a child wants to have the happiest, healthiest, most normal child. Everybody, any parent would want that, and any parent would pray for that, right? Like I said earlier on, we don't know why horrible things happen to seemingly good people, and this question has bothered philosophers for the last 5,000 years, right? We don't know why. We don't know the big picture. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about faith and that kind of thing later on, but what I want to say in response to this question is as follows, okay? So number one, from a purely practical point of view, give yourself permission to be as heartbroken as possible for as long as you need, okay? Preferably, you could put a time limit onto that, because otherwise you can just be heartbroken for the rest of your life. So I would encourage a person to give themselves, I don't know, you would be in a better position to answer how long that period of heartbreak requires, okay? And to be in it and to mourn it. There is a loss of a dream, there is a loss of an ideal, there's a loss of perfection, there's a real loss. But then at some point, and you are a master at this, Ilana, and you really should be speaking about this from the rooftops, which I know that on some level you are. But the key here is to, at some point, choose courage, right? One of the quotes in my book is that your life expands or shrinks in proportion to the amount of courage that you have. And you are a shining example of a tremendously courageous woman who took, worst case scenario and really turned it into best case scenario, leading a life of meaning and purpose and epic contribution, which on some level has also brought you a tremendous amount of joy and fulfillment and happiness. So the fact of the matter is that, yes, not every parent is going to be able to do what you did, but every person and every parent can choose courage. Every person can choose strength. And this is an amazing thing that the mind can do. Truly is an amazing thing. A person in almost any situation has the ability to choose strength, right? And I want your listeners to really let that sink in. You can choose strength in almost any situation. I'm reminded of a very popular book at the moment. It's called The Choice by Edith Eger. I encourage everybody to read that book. And she shares a moment where she was a young girl in the Holocaust, where she was commanded to dance for Joseph Mengele in the concentration camp. And she knew that in that moment, she had to choose that. She had to do that, right? Even though she was starving and broken. And this is just another example and a reminder for all of us that no matter what, we can choose strength. And it may be hard, and it may be, and you probably won't feel like it, But at the end of the day, one of the things that we have to do is we have to choose strength. And then I want to just say one other point, in response to this, right? So your question was, people are told to, they get told to just be courageous, and you asked, how do we translate this into reality? So first point, mourn the loss of whatever it is that you feel that you are losing. Preferably give it some type of time frame. Number two, choose courage, right? Choose strength. Choose it. Choose it every single day. Choose it every single hour if you have to. The third thing is that, yes, as with all tragedies and massive mega disappointments in life, at some point we also have to find faith, and every person needs to find their own faith, their own sense of spirituality, their own sense of purpose that will enable them to get through this. And finally, and this is a very, very subtle point, and that is as follows. There's a strange phenomenon that no matter what a person is going through, they can always feel into the underlying okayness in themselves and in the world. It's a very strange thing. There's a part of you, there's a part of me, there's a part of every human being that is always okay, right? But we don't always focus on that. We're not always aware of that because we're caught up in the pain, in the drama, in the situation. But underneath the pain, drama, and situation, there's a part of you right here, right now, that is just okay. Like there's this underlying sense of okayness available to us to tap into at all times.
Jonti, that was powerful. I must tell you that when David was diagnosed with autism, the time period I allowed myself to mourn was too long. I mourned for 3 years. 3.
Wow.
I remember it being 3 years. I couldn't buy new clothes. I used to wear very flat shoes. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I remember I used to wear rags. And one day someone came over for supper and they said, Ilana, you look too terrible. What's wrong with you? Martin, buy your wife a pair of shoes. And when he left that evening and I looked in the mirror, I realized that it was the first time I was looking in the mirror for about a year. And I realized that I was dressed in rags. And I love how you say time period on it. So I definitely, and I mourned for too long because no one guided me. That's why I'm so happy that parents have the opportunity to listen to you today. I didn't have a Jonti in my life, and I didn't have the information that I needed to fight autism and to pave a better future for my child. Today, there's a tremendous amount of treatments we can apply to help the child with autism lead a better life. And then I love that book, The Choice. It's an incredible book, and I absolutely agree. And I think people need to remember this advice from you. You have the ability to choose. And that's a very, very important point. Okay, so some parents have been on the journey for many, many years. They're tired, they're worn down, their expectations have been disappointed time and time again. How do they keep going? And how do they stay motivated in the midst of this hardship?
Okay, so it's my ardent belief that one of the biggest problems of our society today is that we have very little time for ourselves. As a personal coach, as an executive coach and a business coach, I'm coaching people from all walks of lives. I'm coaching men and I'm coaching women. And without doubt, one of the biggest problems facing people today is that they do not have time for themselves. And I have no doubt that as a parent and as a parent of a special needs child, you're going to have and less time. Advice to you would be make time for yourself every single morning, even if it means getting up early. Okay? Most people will find that the early part of the morning is a time when they can recharge. And I'll possibly share one or two ways to recharge. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, one of the most important things that you can do is to have time for yourself. Some people will prefer to do it very late at night, and that's cool. But other people need to do it early in the morning. I'm personally a fan of an early morning, and that may be 5 o'clock in the morning. For some people, it may even go as early as 4:30 in the morning. But it is impossible to stay motivated during this kind of hardship if you are not filling your own tank. And every single person, especially a parent of a special needs child, has to fill their tank every single day so that they can give more to their child. Okay? At the best of time, we need to fill our tanks. And when a person is going through such a difficult time, they for sure have to fill their tank, and they have to be quite selfish about it. So that would be my first point. My second point was get as much support as you need. The only way to keep going is with support. If you look, for example, if you think of somebody who runs the Comrades, which is something that we host in our country every single year, as you know, a person runs 97 kilometers approximately, right? Along the way, there are people there giving them support in order to reach the end of the journey. There are people giving them oranges, giving them water, people giving them protein bars, right? People giving them wet sponges. At the end of the day, every person needs support. So you need to fill your tank and you need to get support. I always tell my clients, there is no prize for doing it alone. So many people attempt a journey alone. It just makes no sense. Why would you need or even want to reinvent the wheel, right? Reach out, get help, from a therapist, get help from a friend, get help from Ilana, get the help that you need to make the most of this journey in the most motivated and even inspired way. When I came to your school, Ilana, you know, I was blown away. I was inspired. Okay? And at the end of the day, we all need to make inspiration a priority. We all need to make our own energy a priority. And ultimately, we have to open up to receive the support from other people.
Jonti, pearls of wisdom.
Thank you.
That was mind-blowing, beautiful. I will say that I myself struggle to make time for myself. So I'm listening to you. And I agree with you. Don't attempt this journey on your own. I find it very difficult to accept help in my life. And I've learned to accept that help in my life because you can't walk this autism road on your own without the support. And I always tell parents that treating a child with autism is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So I love how you talk about the Comrades Marathon and people on the side of the road giving protein bars, because that's really what's needed. And if your tank is empty, you really can't help your child, you can't help the siblings, your marriage is going to break down. And you know, when you're going through hardship, you really need to even fuel that tank even more. Now,
yes, and one of the fundamental things, you know, that you know, a parent who is coming to terms with this reality needs to actually adjust is you have to change your mind, right? Your mindset has changed. You thought you were walking along the beach, now you're running a marathon. It's two different lives, two different worlds, certainly at the beginning. And until you can change your mind to understand that you need support, and you better be able to ask for that support freely, you're going to suffer. I always tell my clients, you can have an easy life and you can have a hard life. But the one thing that makes an easy life is asking for help. And one thing that makes a hard life is trying to do it all alone. And this doesn't matter on the circumstances. Whatever circumstances you're given, it can be easy and it can be hard. Hard, try to do it alone. Easy, ask for help.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so now I know I've asked myself this question. Martin has asked himself this question, and I know parents of children with autism ask themselves this question. Why me? Why my child? You touched on it early on. What do you say to these parents? Why me? Why my child?
Okay, so there are multiple levels to answer the question, and what I'm going to say would be considered by some to be controversial, but you're speaking to me, so here goes. Okay, so on the first level, nobody knows, right? There is literally no answer to that question. There's no answer to why you, and there's no answer to why your child. Nobody knows this. Nobody knows the answers to why do, bad things happen to good people, and why do the seemingly wicked prosper. Okay, this obviously is the ancient philosophical questions, and on some level, humankind, while they are on earth, will always struggle with this. If a person enters into a spiritual paradigm, and some of your listeners may be spiritual, some may be religious, some may not have any particular beliefs around this, but once a person does enter into this paradigm and they begin to do a little bit of research in the great spiritual traditions of the world, they will find that, ultimately, there's a concept of karma. Okay, so now what exactly is karma? So karma is the belief or the understanding that we all come into this world with a certain purpose. We all come into this world with certain challenges. We all come into the certain world with certain predispositions to different experiences. Now, so personally, I do not believe in a random universe. Personally, I believe that a being of higher supreme intelligence is running this reality of ours. And therefore, on some level, whatever we're going through in life and whatever we are experiencing in life is preordained for our highest evolution. Now, like I said, not everybody is going to subscribe to that. But I do know that when a person does adopt a spiritual belief system in their life, they are far more equipped to deal with suffering and far more able to live a more purposeful and a more joyful existence. So obviously, I'm not here to convince anybody to believe in anything at all, but in my 20 years of coaching, I have noticed that people who do have a spiritual perspective on things tend to live a more joyful, a more peaceful, and even a more energized life. So I would invite some of your listeners just to explore their spiritual beliefs. And of course, sometimes this experience is so crushing that it destroys all belief. And I get that as well. But why you and why your child? In the greater scheme of things, on some level, this is your purpose, this is your journey, and you can allow it to bring out the best in you. And we have no doubt seen that in you, Ilana. I mean, the level and the extent of your contribution is not only mind-blowing, but it's incredible what you have done with this challenge that you have been given. And beyond that, we don't actually know why. But yeah, it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow, but at the end of the day, I know for a fact that both you and Martin have become amazing people as a result of it, and just highly, highly admired people by everybody who knows you. So I mean, amazing.
That's very sweet. I really enjoyed your explanation. Martin used to really ask, why me? When David was diagnosed 16 years ago, he will always tell you, he said, why me? Why my child? He walked around with the why question for a very long time. And then once we established Star Academy and we started helping other parents, Martin will tell you that the why went away for him because we found our purpose. Helping other children really motivated us and gave us a reason for why we had to perceive David's suffering, if that makes sense. That was really, really a wonderful explanation. Now, raising typically developing children can be challenging, but raising a child with autism is honestly on another level, and parents don't always agree on the treatment options, and it causes a lot of conflict between them. How can parents overcome this conflict?
Okay, so off the bat, my answer would be get help, right? As a coach, I am often blown away by coaching as a modality to help people in almost every sphere of life, okay? And this comes back to what I was saying to you earlier on, Ilana. You can't do it alone. The sooner you come to terms with the fact that you cannot do it alone, the quicker you will move ahead and the easier it will be, right? And I know that there are some very stubborn people and people don't want to ask for help, etc., etc., etc. At the end of the day, the more help you get, the quicker you will move ahead. It's that simple. So if there's conflict between the parents, unless there are high levels of emotional maturity and emotional intelligence, best you go and get help. That's the most useful thing that I can say in this scenario for parents.
I remember having a coaching session with you, and I remember the session I had being 30 minutes. And it was one of the most powerful sessions I've experienced. And I remember changing my life because the advice you gave me really did give me that help that I needed. And so we are going to share your details at the end of the podcast so that parents can get in touch with you. And I love how we are, the message, this is the message, get help. Because you're continuously saying this, get help. And I myself am enjoying to hear this because I struggled very much with taking help myself. Now, Jonti, how do you create a life of infinite possibility when you're raising an autistic child? Life no longer revolves around you. You're caring for the autistic child's needs. They need special diets. You know, they've got a million therapists. I know in my home, I'm actually vegetarian. I'm last on the list to get dinner, breakfast, lunch. So how do you create a life of infinite possibility? Because that's what your book, Conscious Manifestation, is all about.
Yes. Okay. So here's one perspective, and you know, you would also be very, very equipped to contribute to this point. So fundamentally, most people at some point in their lives are going to be thrown a curveball at the end of the day, right? Most people. There are very, very few people whose lives do not get derailed at some point in some way. That's just the nature of our journey on this planet. And, you know, having an autistic child, having a special needs child is going to derail a person for a certain amount of time. Everybody is going to respond to it differently, okay? But at the end of the day, okay, at the end of the day, a person needs to embrace the challenge to the best of their ability and yet still be in touch with who they are and what they want. Okay? And a large portion of my book is grounded in this concept that a life of infinite possibility is created by getting in touch with who we are and with what we want. And who we are and what we want changes. It's a dynamic process, and it's certainly going to change as a result of a person having an autistic child. But every parent will need to make a choice. And this is true for parents also who have healthy, normal children, and I'm really putting normal in inverted commas, in a few inverted commas, because I don't know if there's such a thing as a normal child, right? But at the end of the day, you know what I mean, and your listeners will know what I mean. But people have to stay in touch with who am I and what do I want, in spite of what is coming their way. And sometimes what is coming their way will change that, and sometimes they will need to manage their lives differently, you know, given their resources. But ultimately, every single human being has the ability to dream, and every single human being wants to live the best life possible. And I would encourage parents, listeners to carve out. So here's one of my favorite manifestation practices, and I speak about it a little bit in my book, and perhaps in the next edition or the next version I will flesh it out a little bit more in my book. In the early morning, where you are taking time for yourself, spend a few minutes writing down what you want. It doesn't matter if you think it's possible or impossible. Reconnect with that dream inside of you, right? And just write a few moments, write a few lines for a few moments every single morning on what your dreams and your desires and your goals and your aspirations and your visions are. Let me say it like this. Keep the dream going in spite of the nightmare. Keep the dream going for a few minutes every morning in spite of the nightmare. That is how spring emerges from winter. Keep on planting those seeds of manifestation every single day.
Jonti, wow, that is beautiful. I know when I was reading your book, I struggled to actually reach my desires because I almost called you to say, Jonti, we have to talk. I can't, because your desires change. And when I was reading your book 2 weeks ago, I was struggling to access those desires because I felt, I've been on this autism road for 16 years, and a lot of times I feel so deep under the rubble, like I've made this fortress around me, and impenetrable fortress. Every day I put on my bulletproof vest and I'm tough and I can get through this. And now in your book, you're asking me to think about what I desire. And it's almost like, what do you mean, what do I desire? I don't count. I'm here to look after my child. So you really make me stop and think about what you were saying. And I even pulled Martin aside and discussed it with him and asked him what his desires were. So it was very, very uplifting, actually think about this. It took me a couple of days before I could actually access my desires. Now, that brings me to what is conscious manifestation, because you can't manifest if you don't have a desire, correct? But what is conscious manifestation?
Great question. So conscious manifestation is something that for the most part, all of us are doing almost every single day. So what is manifestation? Manifestation is the process, the ability that we are all given to take what we want or an idea that is occurring to us in the mental realm, in the ethereal realm, and convert that into a physical reality, right? So that's a manifestation. Conscious manifestation is understanding all the different aspects to the process, and using them with full awareness to go from idea or desire into physical result. So for example, if you look at the Star Academy, one day in the early part of your journey, you had this idea and you had this desire, and this idea merged with this desire to provide this amazing, incredible space for children and parents. And at one point, that was just an idea. And at one point, that was just a desire. And what you did, Ilana, is that you took this desire, you took this idea, and you have created it into this thriving, amazing, incredible organization that is helping hundreds, maybe thousands of people around the world. So you actually are a master of manifestation in this particular area, right? You may not think about it, but that's the truth. And in truth, many, many people, all people are gifted with the ability to manifest. It's just that very, very few people are working it consciously, or working it deliberately, or working it daily. But we are gifted with this ability for conscious manifestation. And in my book, it's about re-empowering and re-inspiring people to reclaim that part of themselves.
I like how you use the word ability, because you tell us we have the ability to choose. We have the ability to manifest. And that really gives me confidence. I like hearing that word ability. And I think people must remember that even if you think you don't, you do have the ability to do these things. So I really like that. Now, in your book, you speak about speak your truth. And I was thinking about that because parents of autistic children have so many therapists in their lives, doctors in their lives, and it's very hard for them to sometimes be honest with the people in their life, and they feel vulnerable. They've been forced into this position where they need help. They need, as you said, get help. Okay, so now we got the help. Now there's the help. But now, what advice can you give parents about speaking your truth? Because I think, and I certainly know I felt that way, I would often be afraid of speaking the truth to the people in my life who were working with my child because I felt vulnerable, and I felt I couldn't always be honest because I needed them.
Yeah. Look, speaking your truth is a long journey, and not everybody is able to actually speak their truth in the beginning. And sometimes when a client comes to see me, I have to train them to actually get honest, get real, speak the truth, speak your truth. It's one of the most therapeutic processes, right? It's one of the most powerful processes, and it's one of the most necessary processes. Your body will speak your mind if your mind doesn't speak your truth. I'm going to say that again. Your body will speak your mind, often in the form of some kind of dis-ease, if your mind doesn't speak your truth, right? So a safe space is required, an honest space is required, in order for you to really be able to speak your truth. But speaking the truth opens your channels of creativity, opens the channels of joy, opens the channels of freedom, opens the channels of abundance. So it's quite a complex process in the beginning, because sometimes being honest and being truthful can also hurt the people around you. And so, you know, guidance of a good therapist or a good coach is absolutely required. But most people will feel better as a result of just speaking their truth. And if I remember correctly, Ilana, you know, you as somebody who was in the pursuit of truth, and as a result of you being in the pursuit of truth and your ability to speak your truth, that contributed in a huge way to the success of what you're actually doing now. So I think that you're a shining example of how embracing the truth, pursuing the truth, seeking the truth, how it actually contributed to this wonderful organization which you are now running and which you are now offering to the world. So I mean, you're an example of it.
Thanks, Jonti. You know, we really did seek the truth. We worked very hard to seek the truth. And when we found the truth, I really wanted to share it with parents and professionals in South Africa. And that's why I wrote the book, Saving My Son's Journey with Autism, because I wanted to share the truth that I found that was in conflict with the old school of why autism happens, how it should be treated. And that's really why I wrote the book, so that I could share it with share that truth with other parents. I like that you say that you can be trained to speak your truth. That's why I really think having a life coach like you is so important when you're walking this hard journey raising a special needs child. Now, I found this quote in your book very inspiring. You say, magic is believing in yourself. If you can do that, anything can happen. This inspired me. How will believing in yourself as a parent help you to find those treatments that will ultimately lead to your child's healing and improvement? I think it's very challenging for parents on this autism journey when they have appointments with doctors in this country who they perceive to be the top experts, and these doctors are telling them, accept it, there's nothing you can do, this is how it's going to be for his life. You know, I even had a family member many years ago, 16 years ago, when our autism journey started, a family member told us, you know, put him in a home. So how do you believe in yourself when you've got all these outside opinions?
Okay, great question. Yeah, so there are a few aspects to it. Number one, a parent has a special connection to their child, no matter what. Okay, that's just a God-given energetic field, actually, between parent and child. Now, some parents may choose to disconnect from that energetic field, but due to such extreme circumstances, and I get that, but at the end of the day, we are energetic beings and we have access to what's called intuition. Everybody needs to build up a connection with their child in this scenario, or with their desires, and my point is like this: tune in to what you feel is true for you and what you feel is true for your child. There are countless stories about women who have taken their babies to a doctor and they have known that something is wrong, and the doctor said, no, nothing is wrong. And the women have always been correct, right? And maybe this is even more applicable to women than to men, but women are gifted with intuition. They can feel their children. And I encourage women and all parents to nurture that feeling sense, that intuitive sense that will assist them to know what's right and what's best for their child. So that would be my first point. My second point is, you know, part of the conscious manifestation journey is believing in yourself and believing in what you want and believing that you can have what it is that you want. And this sometimes takes working through the different blocks of self-confidence and the different blocks that appear along the way of our journey. If you want to do something, one of the most important ingredients is believing that you can. And if you don't believe you can, then you need help to break through those blocks. I mean, I'm sure if somebody said to you 10 years ago or 15 years ago, Ilana, you are going to be running this amazing organization, helping, you know, parents and children all around the world, you would have thought, can't be, Jonti, I can't even get up in the morning. I mean, how am I going to do this, right? But at the end of the day, it's a journey. And at the end of the day, we've got to honor who we are and what we want. What are our ideas? What do we truly want? And how do we take a step every day in the direction of our dreams?
I agree with you. You know, I studied law, and when I was very young, I did my law articles, and I was very scared and nervous, and I felt very inadequate when I did law, and I struggled to believe in myself. I used to cry every day when I was an article clerk. I was petrified of all these lawyers I was working for. And I think it takes time to believe in yourself, because in later years, I did learn to believe in myself. And today I do believe in myself. So I do think that it takes time. And then, you know, you talk about the connection that we as parents, we as mothers have with our children. And you raised such an important point, because we have that special connection. And I can see when parents go through this hardship, how tempting it can be to just disconnect. You know, if you disconnect, you have a no-care attitude, it can be so much better. I must say, I'm the happiest when all three of my children are safe at home. I'm fortunate that I managed to keep that connection, even through this hardship. But I had to fight through it. You know, my middle son was typically developing. And sometimes I feel guilty, and I feel like he suffered the most, because I was always tending to the other two who needed me more. And there was a part of me that almost always disconnected from him, because he didn't need me. And I had to push through it, and I had to fight to remind myself, but he did need me. Even though he was typically developing, he did need me. So I just wanted to share that. Tell us.
Beautiful. We've got time for one more question.
Okay. So, tell us about the 10 practices in your book. Can you just briefly touch on these? And then my last question is going to be, where can parents get your book? And how can they get in touch with you for live coaching sessions? But just touch on those 10 practices.
Okay, so very, very briefly, the 10 practices are as follows. I'm going to open up my book and I will share with you from the actual book, right? So there are 10 parts, 10 aspects to the journey of manifestation, of conscious manifestation. And practice 1 is all about slowing down, right? We live very hectic lives, and in order for us to really get conscious, we need to just slow down. I talk a little bit about mindfulness, I talk about presence, I talk about connection, and I talk about that being a foundation to access deeper parts of ourselves. Practice number 2, activate your desire, right? Very, very fascinating practice that in order to get what you want, you have to know what you want, and you have to know what you wanted. I spoke earlier about just writing that down every morning. It's a beautiful, amazing, and powerful practice. Spend 5 minutes in the morning just writing down what you want, no matter how far-fetched it seems. You'll be amazed at the seeds that are planted when you write something down. Practice number 3, practice inspiration, right? At the end of the day, guys, you're either inspired or expired. That's the reality. And inspired parent is far more effective than an uninspired parent, right? There is something about your inspiration, Ilana, that touches your children and touches all the children, and in fact touches all people and all parents, right? So we have to nurture inspiration in ourselves. Practice number 4, abracadabra. You create as you speak, right? All of us, we are creating our lives through the way we are speaking every single day. There's a lot to say about that. That's a whole session in and of itself. But the way you speak to your child is going to impact the child. What you say about your child impacts the child. Our words are extremely, extremely potent. Practice number 5, cleanse your lens, right? At the end of the day, we see the world through who we are. And the more you're able to actually become a clear vessel, and I know that it sounds a little bit esoteric, but this will also be, this will also go to the point of when, if you're feeling miserable, cry out your pain. There's nothing more important than releasing the pain that you are in so that you can pursue your best life for all of you. And I'm sure, Ilana, you did that very, very thing, right? Those 3 years of hell that you went through, you needed to release all the pain in your system in order for you to be the shining light that you are today for so many people.
I cried oceans of tears, and Martin said he didn't come home for a year straight without me crying.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. But those tears enabled you, the releasing of that pain enabled you to do what you are doing today without contamination, for lack of a better word. You just do what you do, and you do it brilliantly. So practice number 6 is about owning your power, and multiple levels to that, but at the end of the day, you need power to manifest your dreams. Simple, right? You just need to be powerful. So you need to reclaim your power on all the ways that you lost it. Practice number 7, discover your genius, right? Every single person is gifted with an ability to make a difference in the world. And in order for us to live our best lives, we've got to know what we're good at. We need to offer it to the world. Practice number 8, peel the onion. Nothing happens instantly. Everything is a process. Where the school is today, it's nowhere where it was 5 years ago. And it's going to be in a completely different place in 5 years' time. And that means constantly be in process. You've got to constantly be in process in order to get to where you want to get to. Practice number 9, make a difference, right? Ultimately, our joy in life comes from the love that we give, not the love that we receive. And finally, practice number 10, live in gratitude. You know, ultimately, the world, in spite of all of its pain and hardship and chaos and confusion, there's still moments of happiness that we need to prioritize in order to live our best life and in order to give thanks to God. So we, no matter what, you know, we can find the gift in the situation, we can find the joy, we can find the happiness, we can find the moments of transcendence and beauty only if we have gratitude, and that would also be a choice. We have to choose to be grateful in spite of the terrible, terrible hardships that we face. Finally, people can reach me through my website at jontimayer.com, JONTIMAYER.com. My book is available at Exclusive Books or directly from me. And if there are any other comments from you, Ilana, I'm happy to try and answer them. But thank you for having me. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Jonti, thank you so much for your time. Well done for your book. I know I couldn't put it down. We are so proud of you. You have been a guiding light to me and Martin for many, many years. This was such a powerful session. You imparted pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ilana. Good to see you and wonderful to chat with you. As always, continue your amazing, amazing work.